Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to It's Rainmaking Time. This is Kim Greenhouse. It's very disturbing what the show is about today. It's not one of the pleasant shows I get to do, although my guests are very pleasant. I want you to welcome G. Edward Griffin, who has been around for a very, very long time fighting for our freedoms. He is the author of one of the blockbuster books on the Federal Reserve, The Creature from Jekyll Island. He's written many, many books. And he has produced this documentary along with Michael Murphy, who is also here with us today. What in the world are they spraying? About the aerosol projects that are putting aluminum, barium, and strontium in the air at such high levels. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Michael Murphy and G. Edward Griffin to It's Rainmaking Time. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you for inviting us, and more importantly, thank you for covering this issue.
This is a very nerve-wracking issue to talk about because the framework for talking about it puts us in what is considered a conspiracy theory, and it's really not, because all we have to do is go outside of our homes or our apartments and look into the air, and if you wait long enough, you'll see these planes spraying these chemicals. Since you both produced this film, I'd like you to explain what led you to do this. And how did you raise the money to do it, which is the key to getting the word out?
Well, Michael, why don't you start with that, because you had the lead in that part of the process.
I can do that, and then, of course, you can cover the monetary aspect.
Sure,
because
okay.
I volunteered to raise the money. But essentially, the film started after I went down to San Diego at the American Association for the Advancement of Science meeting, and I listened to geoengineers talk about their models and plans to spray 10 to 20 million tons of toxic aluminum into the sky. Of course, I knew about what many were calling the chemtrail issue before this, so I thought it would be a great opportunity to learn. While I was at that meeting, I had a chance to speak with some of the leading geoengineers, and I asked each and every one of them if these programs were ongoing, because, of course, people have been seeing the trails in the sky for about 10 to 15 years, and they blatantly denied that it was happening. However, at the meeting, I had an opportunity to meet a lot of activists and a lot of people who were down there who had been studying this and researching this and finding massive amounts of not only aluminum, but barium and strontium into the sky. So after this meeting, I wrote an article and sent it to an online publication, not thinking that it would go very far, and I put my email and my telephone number at the end of the article. And the next morning, my phone was ringing off of the hook, and my email was packed. I didn't know it at the time, but I broke the story on the use of aluminum in geoengineering models. And of course, like we said, that metal is being found in thousands of times the normal amounts in the rain and the snow around the world. And of course, we can get into some of the ecology damage that's being done and also the human health impact on that. So that's essentially what had sparked the film, and people began sending us plane tickets asking to come investigate into various parts of the U.S. and even various parts in the world. So the film really got started after we interviewed Mr. Griffin, and we all found that we share the same deep concerns, and he wanted to get involved with this project. And I'd like to pass the torch now to Ed.
Yeah, well, that's certainly true, Mike. I was delighted to learn when you fellows called me and wanted to do a short interview to see if I was aware of this chemtrail issue and what my opinion was. I was delighted to be able to add my 2 cents to it. I had been following the chemtrail mystery, I guess you'd call it, for quite a few years. My common sense told me that that was a lot more than just ice crystals and vapor following jet engines. I mean, it seems so silly that you could think it was, just that when you look at those unique patterns. But I had not done any particular original research of my own. So anyway, when Mike and Paul Wittenberger came over and asked to do an interview, and I realized that they were on the track of this thing, I just felt that I wanted to help in some way. I wanted to be a part of the project if that could, assist it in getting further. Well, it turned out that when I asked the fellows what they needed, obviously all filmmakers need money. So I thought, well, okay, let's see what we can do. I committed to to send the appeal out to all of the people who subscribe to our weekly news service. We call it Unfiltered News. We have a pretty big following now all around the world. And I thought, I'll just put this out there and see if anybody's interested. And if they are, would they be willing to send us a little bit of money so we could pool it all together and come up with a production fund? You know, in the old days, when you produced a documentary film, you dug into your own pocket, you broke open your own piggy bank, and you funded it, or you tried to raise money from investors. And then you hope to sell enough copies of the film to get your investment back and possibly make a little bit of money to make it worth your time and your effort. Well, that model is not what is followed today. It's changed rapidly, especially when people are producing educational videos of this type, which are, have a crusade to them, which have a message. People want to get the word out, as they say. Now, everybody expects to see those available free on the Internet, up on YouTube and some of the other Internet sources. And that is great in terms of getting the word out and bypassing the media, but it's not so hot when it comes to recovering your cost of production.
Correct.
So we just dealt with that head on. We said, look, what we need is a lot of little people. We're not looking for big, rich people that want to send us huge checks. We're just looking for the grassroots, somebody who really cares. Send us a little money. We'll put it all together. We call them angels, or the real angels that wanted to help this project. Well, anyway, to make a long story short, much to my surprise and my utter amazement and pleasure, 2 days after sending that email out, we had pretty well covered our production budget.
That's fantastic.
The response was so encouraging, I just couldn't believe it, which was encouraging at two levels because, first of all, it was nice to know that we were going to be able to fund the project, but deeper than that was the fact that there was so much widespread interest in the topic and so much determination on the part of people who wanted to bring this story to light. So we knew we had really touched a nerve out there. So we were encouraged, and that's how it all started. And, of course, after Mike and Paul began to travel around to the various places that he described, to Hawaii and to Oregon and then even out to Belgium and so forth, I really plunged into it myself and began learning as much as I could so that now I'm up to speed a little bit on the topic as well.
I watched the whole thing twice. I really felt like it was covered with great tact and decency and honor and honesty. A lot of your shots, the interviews that you did, I was so surprised that the top-level interviews that you were able to get, the people that came out to talk about this, the brave people, along with yourselves, who came out to talk about it. It was a beautiful job on such a tough subject. But you really brought it all together. It was pretty stunning the way you were treated at the Capitol. But I will say that all the other people who came in, who were part of plant biology and people who worked for the USDA and even the geoengineers that you taped, pretty stunning stuff.
Yeah,
really.
They pretty well hung themselves, didn't they, with
Absolutely.
one word?
That David Keith, frightening creature. Frightening.
Yeah, well, I want to add, you had brought up the word conspiracy theory in the beginning of the show, and we now call it conspiracy fact. Not only have we spoken to the geoengineers, we have them on film talking about these programs, but our investigation conclusively proves that these metals that are being sprayed into the sky are falling now into the ground. And I hope we get an opportunity to talk about the damaging effects of aluminum, barium, and strontium.
Well, I want you to talk about anything you want to talk about, but the reason that I opened by saying that is that the average person who hears about this, who's not connected in, who's not checking into these things and is unaware, may be told by their friends, it's a conspiracy, like a write-off, deflecting the information. But I have to tell you, I lost my mother from Alzheimer's, and I remember being in Studio City in 2008 in her room with her and her caregiver, and I saw the planes dropping the chemicals in the air, and it was just sitting there. And I turned to the caregiver and I said, do you want to see something beyond measure?